Jupiter, the great benefic, moved into Gemini today, May 25th, where he will be traveling through a whole year. This is a big deal because, I mean, Jupiter is the big guy in the planets. He's the biggest other than the sun, and he rules big things. He's the great benefic. He is the bringer of grace and good fortune and prosperity and abundance to whatever area of our chart that he's traveling through personally. On a collective level, it's a little different. He's always the benefic, but in Gemini, he's considered in his detriment because Jupiter is about big things and Gemini is usually about kind of taking things apart into small pieces to analyze. And so what I will say is that this time represents a big learning curve for humanity. As Jupiter enters Gemini, he's immediately applying to a trine with Pluto, who's an Aquarius. And this is really Jupiter and Pluto's first meeting as Pluto is an Aquarius. And so this is important. I've done videos as each of the planets have had their first meeting with Pluto and Aquarius, because since Pluto will be in Aquarius for a 20-year period, the first meeting each planet is having with Pluto is giving us a lot of information about what's to come in the arc of the 20 years. And Jupiter only hasn't been in Gemini for 12 years. And so you can look back to 2012 and think about what was going on in your life. And there's going to be some similar themes, but it's different because Jupiter is entering Gemini in a completely different sky. Like I said, one of the first things that happens is he's applying to the exact conjunction with Pluto, which won't happen until next Sunday, but still, as soon as he enters, he's in that conversation with Pluto and Aquarius. And that's why I say humanity is going to be having a huge learning curve this year. And a lot of it is going to have to do with Pluto and Aquarius themes. It's a learning curve about where we are going as a collective in the Pluto and Aquarius era, which we're heading into. Now, Aquarius is, Pluto's moving backwards because he's on, or is appearing to move backwards from the vantage point of planet Earth. That's what retrograde is. Astrologers know the planet isn't really moving backwards, but it appears to be moving backwards, and that's what a retrograde is. And it has a very, it has a certain oracular meaning. Pluto's headed back to Capricorn, which is another video that I'm going to talk about that later. But Jupiter and Pluto are in this trine, and there's a revolution going on. It's a revolution of consciousness, really. Everyone is focused on the revolution on the ground, and that is happening, and it's important, and it's intense. We're all feeling it, but the revolution of consciousness is what it's really all about in this Pluto and Aquarius era. Humanity is needing to level up, and that's why we're going through these very intense, difficult times. It's major growing pains. But Jupiter in Gemini is all about the intellect, and Aquarius is too. All the air signs are very intellectual. So Jupiter moving into Gemini is about big ideas, big thoughts, big learning. Like I said, a huge learning curve for humanity. But in our personal charts, wherever Jupiter is entering a new house, you have to understand he's been in another house of your chart for the whole past year. He's been in Taurus. And so he's been expanding our consciousness, or expanding in, or bringing gifts, or, morality issues. There's so much that Jupiter does. I commonly just revert back to grace and good fortune, because those are the really surface levels of Jupiter. But Jupiter has a lot going on. In people, Jupiter represents like priests or rabbis or, men of God and women of God. but also morality or professors. He represents higher learning. He represents judges. He represents higher law and higher order, divine law and divine order. He represents, big things. Jupiter magnifies whatever he's next to. So, again, in our personal charts, there's going to be, I think, a breath of fresh air coming in, a big breath of fresh air into the house that Jupiter has entered in our charts. And, while humanity is going to be on this big learning curve about where we are headed for the future and this new Aquarian era that's, all about like AI and great advancements in technology and understanding frequency and all of these very Aquarian themes, humanitarian ideals, more progressive social structures, all of these types of Aquarian themes that we as a collective are learning. Whatever house Jupiter is entering in our chart is where we personally are going to be experiencing the greatest learning curve. And that differs from person to person. So it's really a great time to get a reading to see where Jupiter has entered your chart. And as far as this year goes, 2024, there's a very distinct shift of energy. There will be, the first half of the year, but from now until the end of the year with Jupiter and Gemini is going to be a completely different vibe than the first 5 months or 5 months of 2024 have been. So I just went off the cuff of this video. I just got home from hearing some really great live music, and I realized I hadn't made the Jupiter into Gemini video yet, and I'll be talking about it more because I know that I didn't possibly say everything here. But on the shadow side, again, Jupiter is in its detriment in Gemini because Jupiter's at home in Sagittarius, and so Gemini opposes Sagittarius on the zodiac. So Jupiter likes to think big, Gemini likes to take things apart. What I will say is that on the shadow side, I think that there's going to be just a lot of divisiveness, a lot of gossip, because it's magnifying those types of Gemini things. But another thing, Gemini rules siblings. And so I think that this will be a year that that's going to really bring a lot of attention and grace around sibling relationships. So where sibling relationships have been ruptured, they might have more cohesion at this time, or just in general, it's going to be a great year for bonding with siblings, and growing our relationships with our siblings in really beneficial ways for those of us who have siblings. But it can also be like cousins, neighbors, if you don't have siblings, things like that. And yeah, it's just going to be big learning for us all this year. High learning curve. And sometimes the learning curve comes with painful lessons, pop quizzes and tests that sometimes we don't do well on, so that we have to, learn. So there's going to be different phases of Jupiter. Because this Jupiter is ruled by Mercury, as Mercury switches signs, it's always going to change the tone of how Jupiter in Gemini is expressing itself. And when we do have a Mercury retrograde, it's going to be big because it's going to be magnified by Jupiter being in Gemini, who is Mercury's, So there's all of this going on. I just wanted to say a few things. I hope that I was articulate, but it's different. If it's in your first house, it's going to be more about your mind and your body. If it's in your second house, it's going to be about your finances. If it's in your ninth house, it's going to be about spirituality and travel and possibly broadcasting or publishing. If it's in your seventh house, it's going to be about your marriage, and so depending on which house Gemini rules in your chart, if it's in your 10th house, it'll be about your career. If it's in your 11th house, it's going to be about your social circle. If it's in your 5th house, about your children or your creativity. And so definitely a great time to contact me for a reading. If you're following this on YouTube, please like, please comment, please subscribe. Please tell me if you know in the comments which house Gemini is in your chart. If not, definitely contact me for a reading. If you're watching on YouTube, my email is in the notes. If you're watching on Instagram, please make sure that you're following me at astrology.tarot.elionnicole. Hit the contact button to email me and get on the schedule for a one-on-one reading. That's how astrology works best when I'm reading one-on-one for clients. That's what I really love to do. But I always come and I give these free astrological offerings because I love astrology. I think everyone should have access to basic astrological knowledge. It's a way to be connected to nature and understand our place within the whole. And yeah, please, if you're watching on Instagram, share this video, follow me, follow my page, leave a comment, help me in the algorithm, guys. I need help in the algorithm. And again, if you're watching on YouTube, share it too. Just anything you can to help me with the algorithm, I would be so happy. I would be so appreciative. It would be so helpful to me growing my channel, growing my business. Hopefully Jupiter and Gemini is going to help me grow all of, this social media. Gemini rules social media too. It rules the media. So it's going to be a big media year. We're probably going to see expansion of social media platforms, lots of new ones popping up, lots of new media outlets popping up, media outlets growing, and all things Gemini are going to be big this year. And again, that has to do with children, learning, curiosity, the intellect, conversations, lots of talk, lots of talking, lots of communicating. And I don't know, this was off the cuff. This was, but I just listened to some jazz, so I'm improvising like my favorite jazz musicians do. So thank you for joining me, and I hope to be reading for you one-on-one soon. Have a great Jupiter and Gemini. It's a year-long transit.